Oh, good evening, and welcome, Tim, tonight from the ACT Party. Just like to give yourself your introduction about the party and yourself. Thanks, Tim.
Okay, good evening. My name's Tim Kronfeld. I've lived in Northcote since '86 when I came up from Wellington. I'm a Horowhenua boy, born and raised. Kapiti College, Massey University. I came up here and joined Jordan Salmon Smythe in the stockbroking, and I've been in the financial markets ever since. I've got 6 children, 3 adults, children, and the second time around the racecourse, so I've got 3 teenage boys. So life's busy, and this is my 4th electoral stand in Northcote, canvassing for the party vote to play the game within MMP as we do, and it's probably my last. But saying that, I do this because I'm passionate about where my children are. They're already generation rent, and I don't want them to be generation debt. It looks like we're going to be generation debt with a capital D for certainly the next 15 years as we take the economy through and out of COVID. ACT Party, we've been around for a number of years now. We have certainly rejuvenated our brand under David Seymour, and things are looking very positive for us.
Thank you, Tim. Now we'll start the round of the 5 questions. What are the key issues you see affecting the people of Beachhaven and Birkdale, and what would you do? What would your party do if you're elected?
Well, I see that when I got up to Auckland in the late 80s, we had a recession out of the stock market crash. In 1990, we 89 or 88 to 90 was quite a tough time for New Zealand. We're going to go and repeat that this time round, probably times 3 in my opinion. The world has subsidised, not just New Zealand, but we followed the course of every central bank and have pushed a wage subsidy into the economy to keep business afloat, and we have now borrowed. We're going to be borrowing in excess of 140 billion, which is a significant increase. We have never had that size of debt by any government in any history as a percentage and a nominal amount. So I see that for the people of Birkenhead, we need to acknowledge what the best attributes are to take us out of that, and that's going to be business, it's going to be the private sector, it's going to be the individual. So we need to focus and have policies that will aid that.
Thanks, Tim. If elected, what would be your approach to supporting the vulnerable members of our community?
I'm standing in the seat to canvass for the party vote under MMP. I'm not canvassing to stand to win the electorate. So I'm voting blue tick, gold tick, as I have done every election for the last 4. That is the process of MMP. So it's understanding how we can put in a centre-right government, and that this time round we will contribute to that significantly. Please, I haven't got the time to look at it, but please go onto our website, act.org.nz, and we've got a very simple set of policy that you can read. Our main focus is with number 2 on the list, Brooke Van Velden. She has done a lot of work with mental health, and please read that because we've got some very good ideas on how we can totally put the patient first and rechannel those resources for the person in need, as opposed to what I see as a redundant DHB model. So we've got a lot of new ideas that we can bring to central government, which will hopefully make every dollar that is taxed and borrowed go that much further, because that is the issue where the 2 main parties are not addressing at the moment, and it's something that ACT has been calling for now for 8 weeks in terms of having a plan to manage our fiscal and our total indebtedness. So how that will feed back, going back to answer your question, yes, there are processes to look at in terms of underprivileged people, disabled people. I think Brooke would bring a lot of new ideas and fresh impetus in that area.
Thanks, Tim. And COVID-19 has been a big impact on the business community. What would your party do to support the local businesses during these difficult times?
Well, we put out a statement probably about 8 weeks ago now. Again, it's on the website. We would have adopted, as every central bank in the OECD has done, and issued a wage subsidy. But now we need to actually do more in terms of we're looking to cut GST back to 10% for 1 year, and we're looking to give a major tax cut into that middle threshold, that 28% rate back to 17.5. That would put around about $2,000 in that band of people in that middle band. So when I look at New Zealand, we've got a very flat triangle. That is where the bulk of the people are going to be able to spend that money, and that will be to sustain mortgages, to sustain staff if they need to do that. A tide will lift all boats. So, the top end will look after itself. The bottom end, we've got safety nets with the welfare system, but it's the middle part that will sustain employment, and that's what we should focus on.
Thanks, Tim. In the Beach Haven and Birkdale area, there is a large amount of new housing being built. What would your party do to ensure that the essential services, such as schools, can cope with the increased population?
Yeah, well, that's a part of the big mechanism we've got. In Wellington, if you look at the books, it's just like any household. A government is like a household. It's got income, it's got expenditure. The three big expenditures is welfare, of which there's about 5 legs. The main one being pensions, unemployment assistance, and then there's various other legs off that, hardship. You've got education and you've got health. And those three are now in excess of $20 billion. And it appears that the lid just gets pulled open and the money gets poured in and the lid gets closed. And we need to understand and pull that. I can tell you every business has pulled their onion to bits, but what I don't see is Wellington hasn't pulled any of their onion to bits. We don't know how well that money has been managed, and the system. Education has been very centralised and unionised. We've got a lot of ideas. We introduced charter schools. The health, I think we need to totally relook at how these DHBs operate. I think we're paying far too much money to the public service sector within Wellington. So all that has to be channelled out, and Northcote is just one of 60 electorates that'll be wanting those. Everyone will be wanting their slice of the pie. I think we've. I just like to have some fresh ideas and new ideas in there, and want to rationalise, because we're going to have to rationalise. We can't just keep borrowing and spending. The new government will have to look at every part of government expenditure after October the 17th. It's not going to be easy. There's no magic here. We can borrow, and the cost of that borrowing is cheap. We're monetising our debt. All right, which means the Reserve Bank are buying over half of what's been issued. We've never gone down that road before, and a lot of people might glaze over when I say monetising debt. But what that means is that we are buying our own debt. One part of government is borrowing it, and the other part is investing into it. The person who's borrowing it is the people of New Zealand via the Minister of Finance and the Debt Management Office, and the Reserve Bank are turning around and putting liquidity, some of their balance sheet, into buying that debt, which is fine, but we need to look at what this gross debt and net debt is going to look like.
Thanks, Tim. Are you personally and your party concerned about the climate change, and what do you see as the biggest effect in our community?
Well, climate change we did not vote for the Climate Zero Carbon Act. We found that that act to be far too draconian in terms of the power given to a climate change minister. We're going to need to look at how we treat the science. I'm sceptical. As John Howard, the Australian Prime Minister, he was asked, he said, what do you feel about climate change? He said, I'm an agnostic. In other words, I understand it, I understand what needs to be done, but I don't think we should blow all our toes off both our feet to try and combat our emissions at a faster pace than the rest of the world. So I would say we need to review that, and I think it would have to be reviewed anyway, just given the economic circumstances. But I think we need to transition to low carbon, which is low carbon emissions. We need to obviously electrify our fleet of vehicles, which I think can happen slowly, but we need to let the private sector work out how we can transition from a diesel truck to a hybrid diesel to a full electric, and we need to do that with this work from home. All our total public policy when it comes to transport. When it comes to how we're going to bring electricity from the South Island to the North Island, how we're going to actually transition slowly and provide incentives, perhaps with depreciation and the likes. But business will transition. It's going to be a phase in and a quiet, slowly approach. We have an emission trading system in place, which is a tax on carbon. So emitters are already paying that. And the price of carbon has gone from $20 to currently $35 a tonne. So, carbon, it's an invisible gas that when you buy some carbon, that's deliverable to nobody, but it's deliverable to it's a tax basically. So people who emit pay that. I think we could probably do more in terms of any. We've already got a lot of regulations around environmental, pollution. There's a lot there already, but we're going to have to play our bit. But my feeling is the current legislation as it is just too tight. When we're going to need our primary sector, if we start laying the carbon charges onto bringing in stock, and again we've got this science about methane. There's a lot of conjecture about how you measure it, what farmers should be paying. So I think it's a step back and relook at the whole project.
Thanks, Tim. And that's the end of the questions. And I'll just give you a few minutes just to give you final words. Thanks.
Well, final word. This election is going to be one of a pivotal. We'll look back on 2020 as being a shocking year. We're not out of this by any means. We've got there's secondary infections happening in Europe. We've got countries that have followed the Swedish model, which has sustained a much higher death percentage. This virus might mutate. We've got measles. We have a measles pandemic that we saw last year. So we need a health system that's right onto it. And I think I've been more and more frustrated by the last lockdown. We haven't. Again, please look at our website. We put out 10 weeks ago that we should be emulating an epidemic response centre like Taiwan, where the government is not a player. It's a player, but it's not a controller. I felt that we haven't been, the current system, they've done a tough job. Like every country's had to learn on the hop as we've done, and we've been lucky. But I don't think we needed to go into that second lockdown. I think we needed to be on top of it a lot more, and we're not the current administration doesn't want to bring in the private sector. They don't want to bring in COVID cars. They don't want to bring in thermal imaging. They don't want to bring in private facilities. There's a lot of stuff that we should be looking and investigating, bringing in people who are COVID free from Tasmania, South Australia, West Australia. I think West Australia, South Australia, and New South Wales are opening up now. So we should be able to do something in that space. And at the moment, it feels like the transparency is not there. I'm not getting the right answers. So we need new ideas, but acknowledging that we've been through a tough time. And then looking back at where we are with MMP, where we are with the government, the government is the single biggest entity, economic entity in the country. You look at Fonterra, they've just released their results. 21 billion in revenue, 347 million bottom line. I've just said that the three big departments of government that chew on over 20 billion per annum, I just think that we should be willing to, question the state sector, how it's run, how it's organised, and put the pressure on these ministers to ask exactly how much better we can be in spending that taxpayer's dollar, especially now that a good chunk of it is going to be borrowed, and we've got these fiscal deficits now forecast right out until 2034, the current lot. So children that are born this year, they're going to be 15 or 14. They're going to be nearly young adults, or teenagers when they start to when we we're just going to live with debt, and debt. You cannot borrow your way out of a recession. So New Zealand just needs to acknowledge where we can, what we can do. And I think the ACT Party and our list, we've got 7. All our lists run businesses. Seymour accused the current cabinet of being all student ministers because they've gone straight out of university with a political science degree straight into politics. They haven't had to make hard calls on how to strategise a business to survive. And now we're going to have within our economy, we need a lot of stuff that needs to thrive and survive. So we need to get the smarts on. And I think in a working government, the ACT Party, it's our time. I feel it's our time.